All right, Tito. You gotta be in the video. You gotta earn your keep. You're paying your rent. Get the views. Book review ASMR. He does not like that. But when I went to buy the Atlas Paradox, the bookstore that I went to had one of those like blind book dates where they wrap up a book and then kind of write a blurb of it so that you don't know exactly what book you're getting, but you're getting a kind of a sense of what it is. And I thought it'd be fun to open it on camera and then like read it and then come back and tell you how it was. So this is me opening. I got two. This one says a dump site boy in the not so distant future finds a mysterious item when he goes garbage hunting. This small item leads the poor boy on a dangerous mystery while he flees from those who would take it. Okay, I think I want to read this one. It was a smaller one. It's the Dump Site Boy. It was suggested by Garrett. My cousin's name is Garrett. So let me open this up. It was only at $4.95. They were both $4.95. There was one there that was like $1 something. Okay, let's look at it. It's called Trash by Andy Mulligan. Pick it up and keep it hidden. His name is, it says on the back, it says, my name is Rafael Fernandez, and I am a dump site boy. People say to me, I guess you just never know what you'll find sifting through rubbish. Maybe one day you'll find something nice. Then one day I did. Ooh, interesting. Okay, so this was published in 2010. So I will read this and get back to you. I read it. My original plan with this idea was to kind of compare and contrast the description of the book that made me buy it versus what the book actually was, because I feel like things about a book and everything that goes into making a book is what markets it. So the cover, the thickness, the pages, the what is it called? The summary on the inside jacket. All of those kind of market the book visually before you even read it and decide what you like about it. And so taking that away and then having just a little blurb with the blind book date, whatever it's called, it changes things, you know? And so I had, an expectation of the book due to this, external summary that I might not have gotten from seeing this book. And, having all of that removed can make me pick up a book that I wouldn't normally pick up. I would have avoided this book if I saw this in a store or a library, because it's not something I'm interested in. Another thing is that this is a children's book, and I'm not a child anymore, even though I look like it. I'm literally wearing strawberries. I'll do a little bit of a comparison of what the summary made me think this book was going to be and then what this book actually ended up being. But I also have just some questions about the book. The description that Garrett recommended or suggested wrote is a dump site boy in the not so distant future finds a mysterious item when he goes garbage hunting. This small item leads the poor boy on a dangerous mystery while he flees from those who would take it. Because I didn't see anything else about the book, what I immediately jumped to was this is a future dystopian make-believe adventure heist novel. Not a heist, but like an adventure MacGuffin novel. This boy finds an interesting artifact or gadget, and the insidious government were trying to take it from him, and he uses it to do good. And that's generally what this novel is about, but this is a political novel, a political piece. Most dystopians are political, that's the whole point of them, but this was very real world, not dystopian future world, and not make-believe sci-fi fantasy world. very real world, and I'm going to get into that. That's some of my questions. The book is juvenile fiction. It's middle grade, which I don't know if I would actually read this as a kid. Like, I'm not a kid anymore, so I can't really be in the mindset of a kid if this book would entertain me or impact me as a kid. But as an adult, I could see, I guess, that it might be one of those books that you read as a kid, and it's a little too old for you, even though it's written for kids. It's a little too old for you to read, and you don't really understand it until you grow up, and then you're like, oh my god, that book that, I remember reading as a kid had so many things that I didn't think about as a kid, but I do think about now as an adult. I don't know if that makes sense. You know what this book reminds me of? It reminds me of those books that your teacher would have in her classroom, like your 5th grade teacher, and you read all the Goosebumps already, and she doesn't have the next Percy Jackson book, so you read all, like, the old, boring book, and it's just about kids going through something difficult, and you're like, whatever, it's just something to read during quiet time, even though it's not, like, an adventure book. It's just a difficult read. I don't know how to explain it. I guess I would call this a children's literary novel, or novella, because it's not an adventure book, but it's not like nothing happens. I don't know how to explain it. I guess I'll just go into it. The book is written in multiple perspectives of mainly the 3 boys who are the main characters, but also some other characters, which I found interesting, as if they were writing a statement of what happened, like a police statement, or at least writing it down for a report. What I liked about the different narrators is that you could they had their own voice. I've said that before, is that I really like when narrators have their own voice. And so you could tell when it was the littlest boy, Rat / Junjun, versus like Gardo, versus like Sister Olivia and Father Juilliard. Some other things I liked about the book is, where is it? They had these like newspaper reports. There's multiple of them. Let me try and explain. This boy, Raphael, he works at a dump site collecting trash that he can then resell, such as plastic or glass, and he finds this bag with a wallet full of money and an ID of a person. Later that day, police come asking if anybody has seen a bag with some mysterious contents in it that they need. It's very important for them, and they will pay a lot of money for it. And Raphael immediately is like, oh, that's the stuff I found. And instead of coming clean, he goes on an adventure to figure out what all of the mystery items was. And it turned out that the wallet was owned by Jose Angelico, and he stole money from the senator / vice president. The police killed him trying to find out where the money was, and the wallet had a key for a box that held the letter, and the letter was meant to go to a man, Jose's godfather, who would know how to decode the letter and then find the money, and it was like $6 million that he stole from the vice president, and these little boys decoded everything and found it and recovered the money. That's the point. That's the plot of the book, right? I would say story-wise, this was a 3 for me, 3 stars. I didn't feel very emotionally attached to any of the characters. I didn't feel like we got any time with them, learning about them, other than they're poor, they work in a dump site, and they come from a poor country that doesn't treat their people well. The story was fine, the mystery is fine, it was interesting, but it wasn't like the Da Vinci Code, which I guess this is a juvenile novel, so it might just be more interesting for a younger kid who doesn't need all of these intricate mystery things to unlock stuff or decode stuff. If they just need like 2 or 3 clues and they're like, oh, that's an interesting mystery. I don't know what I'm saying. The reason I want to talk about this is because of the country that this book is supposed to be set in. In the dust cover summary, it says that this is an unnamed third world country in the not so distant future. And because of that, I immediately thought that this was some dystopian country that was made up, right? And it was just supposed to be inspired by real world, third world, or lesser developed countries. No, that's not what it is. This book was written in 2010, but all of it seems very contemporary and modern even today. So the not so distant future just meant like a vague time period, but still contemporary. The unnamed third world country, I became like obsessed with trying to figure out what this country was. So much of it is set in the real world with real world things. I cannot understand why the author didn't just say which country this was supposed to be. The clues. Almost everyone has a Hispanic name. So we have Rafael, we have Jose, Gabriel, but with like an accent. And then we had other names like Junjun and Gardo. I guess that would be considered Hispanic. I'm not sure. The other clue is they use pesos as currency. And I thought pesos was only Mexican currency. So I thought this was Mexico for a really long time. And I was like, that's kind of weird. Mexico isn't a third world country, but whatever. And I found out actually that a lot of countries use pesos. So I was like, okay, I didn't know that. And then they talk about Day of the Dead, which again, I thought Day of the Dead was only a Mexican tradition, but apparently Day of the Dead celebrated on November 1st and 2nd is a Mexican tradition, but most Catholic countries have a Day of Remembering the Dead, and English, it would have been translated to just Day of the Dead. Interesting. And then the things that made it kind of obvious that it was the Philippines is that there was a Chinatown. They used the word typhoon. They used rickshaws, which I know aren't specifically Philippines, but that's definitely taking it out of Latin America. I don't think they use rickshaws in Latin America. And the fact that the author teaches in the Philippines and lives both in London and Manila. So this country is the Philippines, is what I'm trying to say, which I'm so confused on why the author doesn't just call it the Philippines. And I have a couple of theories. The first being that he wanted this to just be a vague stand-in country for all the things that go on, which I have a little problem with because he specifically says that this is a third world country, and most of the things that happen in this novel happen in first world countries too. Police brutality, government corruption, theft of money from the people and the government, revolutions, riots, mistreatment of the poor. All of that happens in most countries. I'm not going to lie. In first world countries, that happens in America. That happens in England, where the author is from. The idea that it's a vague stand-in to just represent a lot of countries where bad things happen kind of messes me up because, like, you specifically stated that it's a third world country and you use a lot of real world things of the Philippines. So the more likely theory that I have is that the author just didn't want anybody to call him out on this. If it's vague and unnamed, then if people say, hey, you kind of paint the Philippines, the Filipino government and the Filipino people in a bad light, he can be like, oh, well, it's kind of inspired by the Philippines, but it's not supposed to be the Philippines, even though it is. And if people are like, hey, this kind of sounds like, you know, things that happen in Brazil, he can be like, well, it's not actually Brazil, it's just an unnamed country, you know? And that kind of seems like a cop-out. It kind of seems cheap, especially since he does name first world countries such as America and England and has characters from those countries, and China too. He names China. And like they're mentioned in passing, so he doesn't really have like a positive or negative thing to say about them. But it's like, why would you name those countries and not this country? It's just weird to me. Another thing is, why even make it the Philippines, even though it's unnamed, it's the Philippines? Why do that? You can make a fantasy country. You could have made a country that didn't exist. You could have set this in the future where countries had different names. You could set this in an alternate universe. You could even use a lot of the things that you use in this book that are real world things, but make them slightly different to make them not a one-to-one comparison to a real world. So why actually put this in the real world? Because this book doesn't actually ask or answer any questions. Are we supposed to pity the people of this country? Kind of, because they go through a lot of bad things and you feel bad for them. But, I mean, they don't really have a resolution towards the end. Are we supposed to be questioning the government of this country and the government's corruption? Yes, but we also have the same kind of corruption in first world countries, and we don't answer how to do this. The boys take the money and give it to the people, technically, but we don't see the resolution of how that happens, and they just go to a different place in hiding where they live a good life. There's no real revolution. There's no real revolution. So what are we trying to talk about with the fact that this is basically the Philippines? Nothing. I think the author just went to the Philippines and saw things that made him sad, made him feel bad, had the idea for this story, and wrote it with his inspiration in the Philippines. I think that theory is supported mainly by the character of Sister Olivia. So Sister Olivia is a 22-year-old white lady from London who went to the city that this book is mainly set in on her way to a vacation. She did it for some volunteer work and then went on her vacation, and then she came back because what she saw made her feel so bad she wanted to help. And she talks on and on about how she wants to save this city and how she fell in love with the people of the city and wanted to help them. And at first I was like, oh my god, this is a white savior, but it's not really a white savior trope because she doesn't actually save them. What it feels like more is that she is a trauma porn voyeur, in that she sees all this suffering and she wants to help them, but she can't actually do anything to help them. She doesn't actually do anything to help them. And so she just watches their suffering and feels bad about it, and then feels good about herself for feeling bad about it. And I think that's what this author does. I'm sure he does a lot of great stuff. The little blurb on the dust jacket says that he teaches English and drama in, I believe, Manila and other places. He's been to India and Brazil. And so I'm sure he does a lot of good and has positively affected a lot of children's lives. But I think this book is just a trauma porn voyeur. This book is just supposed to be a lens into suffering. It is kids from a poor country going through something awful, being beat up by police, and getting a happy ending, but no real message. And I think that's all I can really say about this book. Obviously, I'm looking at this book through a white lens, and I can't really say here nor there how it has or will or could affect the people of the Philippines or anybody else. Maybe somebody smarter than me who has read this can talk more about it, but that's just some things I noticed, some questions I had. Like I said, if I had seen this in the store, I don't think I'd be in that section of the store, but I definitely would not have picked this book up. The name, Trash, doesn't really call to me. I don't think I would have picked this book up in the store or a library, so I'm glad that Blind Date with a Book was interesting enough that I picked it up. It was a good book, I guess. 3 stars. I'm sure a kid would have enjoyed it more since it's got that writing style that kids would like. Alright, that was my review of the book Trash by Andy Mulligan. Anyway, that's about it from me. Please leave a comment, like, and subscribe if you liked the video. If you want to see more from my channel, I do book reviews, mainly Dollar Tree book reviews. And I will see you in the next one, I guess. Okay, bye!